Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Yeah.
The views expressed by J. Michael McCoy are the views of the hosts and guests of Max World Live, and not necessarily the views of Webcast One Live, its staff, its management, the cleaning crew, Dave the electric guy, the guy who cleans the skywalk, the woman who brought in the cookies, the management staff of Hubble Real Estate, the parking lot attendant at Keck Parking, the wait staff over at Miss Kitty's, the coffee crew at Frederick's, the man in the street corner willing to work for food, Rob Spearman, Max Crabb, or anyone else of sound mind. Should you be offended, provoked, intimidated, shocked, confused, or just made to think independently, log on to MaxWorldLive.com right now. It's your voice we want to hear in Max World. And now, live from the palatial studios of Webcast One Live, your host, J. Michael McCoy.
All right, 4 minutes after the hour on this 11th day of March in the Lord's year 2014. I'm J. Michael McCoy, and this is the Tuesday edition of Max World Live, starring Tom Coates and Ryan, our producer, who never says anything. He never says anything. I can't get him to say anything. So if somehow we can... Does he talk during your show, Tamara?
He does.
He never talks during our show, do you?
It takes such a long time to turn on my microphone.
Well, just leave it on. Anyway, Tamara Scott, the chairwoman of the Republican Party in the state of Iowa.
National Committee woman.
National Committee woman. All right. And on the phone, the Esquire Steve Scheffler. Steve, how are you today?
Good. How are you?
Good. Nice to have you on. Thanks for being here.
You bet.
And Steve, tell me your title again.
I'm the National Committee man.
You're the National Committee man, and you're the National Committee woman.
Correct.
Now, is that a political thing, or we just think both genders need to be represented?
Well, no, it's a mandate from the Republican National Committee. Each state has a committee man and a committee woman,
So each state has that?
Right.
All right. And we'd like to start out, if we could just talk a little politics up front, and later on we're going to talk Common Core. And, Steve, you're welcome to join us in that conversation if you'd like, but we know your time is valuable. What's going on right now in the state of Iowa with A.J. Spiker stepping down and the movement that's going on in the party right now? And we'll start with you, Steve.
Well, I guess to say I was surprised was an understatement. I saw A.J. at the convention in Polk County on Saturday, and he didn't mention anything to me, so I would have preferred, I guess, if he would have called and told me, and Tamara, I guess, that he was going to do this. I know he had told me several times that he probably wouldn't run in January, but never, ever indicated that he was not going to fill out his term, so I guess I'm just slightly disappointed that I didn't get that call, I guess, and let me know what's going on.
And what was I'm sorry, you're going to have to talk to me like I'm a 6-year-old. What was his reason given for stepping away from the role almost a year early?
Well, he's going to take a position with the PAC that Senator Rand Paul has, so that's what he's going to be doing.
All right, so between the lines, am I hearing that he's going to work for Rand Paul's Iowa campaign for president?
Well, the PAC, I think, I don't know all the legal ifs, ands, and buts, but I think that's kind of the thing that comes first, before a final announcement is made. So it's the PAC, so it's not officially the campaign.
Right. Tamara, why do you think he did it?
I think that he was very happy to go work for Rand Paul. I think the timing just happened to come at the same time. Some other things are happening in our state, but I don't think that they're related. He when I talked to him, he couldn't say it earlier because he was working on a fundraiser with Paul Ryan, and he didn't want to do anything to interfere with getting Paul Ryan signed up for the Lincoln dinner. So I think that the timing was just one of those things, and you can think what you want to think, but I think he's ready to go back home and enjoy his family.
Where's home for him?
Ames,
okay.
But
now, Fisher stepped out also close to the same time. Are those two unrelated, or because they both came from what we call the liberty wing of the Republican Party? Is it just coincidental, or is there something else going on?
I think it's related because he was going to run for the state senate, and then he decided not to run for the Senate, and then he made a statement saying that another good opportunity had come down the pike. Now, I have not seen that, but that's my suspicion that he'll be working for the PAC, too. And again, I don't know that. I'm just thinking that that's probably the case.
See, I don't think they were related. I think he stepped down to run. But I think, Steve, if you know, I think there were 2 or 3 in that seat running. So there was a primary. quite a contested primary. And so I felt like he stepped out and probably will go with the Paul group.
So you think Fisher's going the same direction as A.J. Spiker?
It wouldn't surprise me, but I really didn't feel like he stepped down. I don't feel like they're related. I felt like
Okay.
he stepped down to run.
Were they, let me ask both of you this, were they feeling the heat, starting to feel like they were going to be ousted anyway, because they've been a bit on the hunted list of some of the Republicans in the state? Some of the county groups have given them a no confidence vote. Was this stepping out before I'm embarrassed and thrown out type of a thing?
Well, Tom, I think he saw the handwriting on the wall that the makeup of the committee is going to be quite different that we're going to elect on April 26th. So I think between this opportunity that came up, which I don't question his motives for wanting to take this position, but I think between that opportunity and the handwriting on the wall that probably if he wanted to continue as chair was just not going to be possible, then I think that's why he just said, I guess I'm still just disappointed that he didn't fill out his term, because right when we're going to election season, we need to be focused on defeating Democrats and electing Republicans. It just kind of takes us off course a little bit. And I'm sure you're going to ask the other question a little bit later on about the procedure by which to elect a new chairman, but it just causes a little bit more of a hiccup that we really don't need right now, I guess.
Well, does this not give us an opportunity to become more focused? Because this has been a bone of contention since the Liberty Wing was so well organized back in the 12 elections. This has become kind of a bone of contention, and I have heard that there are some big donors that have stepped to the sidelines, not given the money. Is this an opportunity to put us back together and perhaps bring us together prior to this 14 election?
Well, I sure hope so. And again, I suppose part of it's dependent on the timing of the election of a chairman. You know, I would have preferred if he would have stepped down at the end of the state convention when the new state committee could elect the new chairman and stuff. But, you know, he's the chairman and he's called for an election. But I just think we'd be a lot better off if we elected a permanent chairman at the end of the June convention and let Danny be the acting chairman from the time that A.J. steps down until June 14th, but because there is the potential, you know, that you could have another overturn in leadership, you know, and stuff. So I don't know. I'm hoping that, you know, that maybe Danny can be talked into doing that, because I just don't think it's going to be helpful if we have elect a new chairman in March and then, you know, the strong potential of electing a different one come June or July of this year.
More divisiveness. Tamara, your thoughts on that?
Well, to AJ's credit, AJ could have resigned and been done. But he resigned and gave notice so that the party did have time to have folks run for office and have an election the proper way, the way that it was done after Matt Strawn resigned. They had an election and fulfilled that term. And so I understand what they're saying as far as waiting for the next committee, but that's not really, you really don't want to leave that open. You need to proceed on with business, and that committee would not have gotten to pick a new chair without just purposely throwing out one chair. And so I think it's totally fine to go through and have the committee that is still fulfilling their obligations pick another chair.
Okay, now the Register wants to foment discord within our party. We have no illusions towards that. Is there the kind of divisive infighting going on that they would like to have us believe, guys?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's ever helpful when county parties and or people talk about the divisiveness via the public airways. But by the same token, I think it is fair to say that there is a lot of tension, and I think a lot of it is due to the fact that people that didn't align with one particular candidate feel like they're disenfranchised. And the biggest issue that I see, and I like AJ as a person an awful lot, you won't find a better, outstanding person ever. But the problem increasingly that I've seen in the last 6 months to a year is the inability or the unwillingness on the part of AJ to communicate with people that might have some concerns. And I fully understand when you do not want to engage with people that berate you through social media. But when there's people that just want to have a discussion, it looks like to me increasingly that that's just not the attitude that's coming out of there, that they just don't want to have that discussion. And when you're a leader, you have to do those things. But going back to one thing, Tom, again, I guess I respectfully disagree with Tamara. I think having an election for chairman now, when probably a lot of these people are not going to be returning, and then having probably a potential new leader in June or July, that is not going to be conducive to keeping our party on target to defeating the Democrats and electing Republicans. It would become a distraction. It's just not something that's going to be helpful. So, and there's nothing that a acting chairman cannot do that a chairman can do. I mean, they're going to be able to do and lead the party for that 2.5-month transition. And then when we elect Danny or somebody else, I just think that's the best way to prevent any kind of disruption.
All right, we're here with Steve Scheffler, who is the Republican chairman in the state of Iowa, and Tamara Scott, who is the Republican chairwoman of the party, and Tom Coates is here. Let's go to the phones. Guess who?
Frank!
Frank's here. Frank, how are you today?
Good. Well, I don't mean to air dirty laundry in public, but I'm tired of losing.
But I'm gonna.
And I'm aiming this mostly at Tamara, but anybody can answer. Did anybody catch the CPAC convention?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, Pat Caddell put forth a study, and I think you know Pat. Pat put forth a study that said that 60% of registered Republicans would be willing to leave the party given a viable option. There's a lot of disenchanted folks out here, mainly Tea Party, mainly conservative, and maybe some in the same. I think the Republicans are playing they're not playing to win, they're playing not to lose. And they don't want to do anything or say anything. That they think this Obamacare is going to implode before the fall, which it will. It will collapse under its own weight, but it's not going to go away. No government program ever goes away. It'll just get funded and played around the edges to make it eventually work. So they've set forth a strategy that they don't want to do anything or say anything that's going to rock the boat. Anything Obama's trying to divert the conversation, they're trying to get the conversation back on Obamacare, rightfully so. But it's just like Pat Caddell said. Boehner, let this budget thing go by. He let the raise and the debt increase go by. He needed to make a stand, and where he needed to make a stand, according to Pat Caddell, was he needed to shut down congressional business till we got an answer for our national tragedy that 4 people were killed in Benghazi.
All right, Frank, I appreciate the phone conversation. Any thought from you, Tamara?
Well, I don't know if there was a question there for me, but
No, there
No,
wasn't.
there wasn't.
but I hear you, Pat. I hear you, Frank, and I think you're right. A lot of Republicans are very concerned and waiting for leadership. We would like to see someone stand their ground. It's not just getting elected, and it's not the message that we always hear them talk about before the election. It's standing your ground once you're there. It's not just Obamacare. It's not just Benghazi. We would just like to see someone wave a flag, have a message, and go forward. Imagine, let me just take you back to 2010. Scott Walker, 2 days in office, 2 days as governor.
Good example.
He took on the largest union in the state, and he didn't back down because he knew what he was talking about. He moved forward. He wasn't cowarding. And even through a recall election, he rallied this nation like we have not seen in a very long time, across state lines, across this, the country. People got behind him. If we had a
And
leader
in bigger
do
numbers
that,
than he was originally elected in.
absolutely. And if we had a leader do that, imagine Terry Branstad, 5 terms. He's going on his 6th term. His approval rating is sky high. If he would trumpet some of the causes of Iowans
And take on this,
of Republicans,
take on the collective bargaining, which was the linchpin. Although I did hear just the other day that I don't know if it's a strategy just happened. He took the firemen and the police out of the collective bargaining issue. He doesn't know to this day if he could have won had he kept them into the mix. He put them outside the mix and was able to win. I think in Ohio, they kept in the mix and they lost.
All right, we're about 17 and a half minutes after the hour. Steve Scheffler is the chairperson of the Iowa Republican Party. He's on the phone with us. Tamara Scott, the woman of the Republican Party. She's with us along with Tom Coates. We'll continue the conversation on what's going on in Iowa politics. And later on, Common Core. You know what it is? Has nothing to do with an apple. We'll talk about that here live in Mac's World. I'm J. Michael McCoy. If I haven't told you lately, thanks for listening. Love this job. Couldn't do it without you. Right here on KTIA, Iowa.
Accurate.
All across America, there are countless numbers of people struggling with addiction and other life-controlling issues. Probably someone you know and love. There is a way out. There is hope. Transformations Treatment Center in Delray Beach, Florida, has a unique approach to substance abuse treatment. Call now and ask about our Guaranteed Success program or log on to transformationstreatment.com. Transformations. Change your life. Change your relationships. Transform your world.
Yes, now your favorite programs on Webcast One Live can all be watched and listened to on any Android or Apple device. Your phone, tablet, or iPad. Yes, your favorite shows on Webcast One Live are available live or on podcast wherever you go. Let me introduce to you some of our great shows.
Shalom! Every week on Understanding the World with Rabbi David Kaufman, we'll talk about issues in the Middle East, issues related to the Jewish tradition and religious traditions in general, and keep you up to date on exactly what's going on around the world. You may know some of the story, but you haven't heard all of the story until you've heard it on Understanding the World with Rabbi David Kaufman and our special guests we have on every week.
Hey, this is Doc with Doc and Lefty. I want to tell you about our brand new time slot. It's from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. It's on the same night, Tuesdays. We now follow Ed Fallon and the Fallon Forum on webcast1live.com. I want to tell you a little bit about our show. Our show is focused on local, state, and national, and sometimes international politics. We like to keep people updated and informed. We also have very interesting guests. So please join us every Tuesday from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. on webcast1live.com.
So when you want to watch your favorite Webcast One program, remember, there's an app for that. You know, there's an app for that.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Get away from us, you neat old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit! You're our hero!
21 minutes after the hour, 11th day of March in the Lord's year 2014. I'm J. Michael McCoy in the studio today with Tom Coates for Max World on KTIA and across the land on webcast1live.com. Steve Scheffler, who is the chairman of the Iowa Republican Party, is on the phone, and Tamara Scott, the chairwoman, is not on the phone. She's in studio. And Tom, you were beginning to talk about some of the different elections that were going on, including. So let me ask this at the end of it. So will there be a special election to fill this period of A.J. Spiker's seat, and then another election in a year, or will we nominate somebody to fill out his term? Has that been decided?
I think that's up to the Central Committee.
Well, the call we got was, the call for the meeting says that we are going to have an election, but technically that term would run until January of 2015, but that still would not prevent a new committee of asking for another election, maybe in June or July. And that was my whole point in having continuity and a smoothness of transition of waiting and electing a chairman in June after the state convention, so that we don't have the potential or the possibility of some hiccups or some disruption along the way. I think there is a lot of potential if we do that, if we elect a permanent chairman at our meeting at the end of March. It's just I don't like to think it would happen, but it probably would. So, I'm going to be urging Danny in the strongest way to look at being the acting chairman from March 31st to June 14th.
And neither one of you are on the committee because you're the chairperson.
We do have a vote.
We do have a vote.
You do have a vote.
I heard that. In fact, there was a show a week ago, Steve, I don't know if you picked it up, on Jan Michelson, where a couple of our regulars here, we've got Craig Robinson and Will Rogers that come in pretty regularly to this show. We're both on Jan, along with Fisher. And Craig had written an article on the Iowa Republican, and Fisher were charging that there was a stacked deck on these delegates. I wanted to get your input on some of that. Do you think that was a fair charge or not?
Based on whose allegations was it?
Well, Craig Robinson had written an article, and Fisher was upset that that there was supposedly a stacked deck that was being orchestrated by Branstad and his people. Now, do you think that that's a reasonable charge or not?
I mean, I don't think that that's a reasonable charge. I think there probably were some people that were overly ambitious in making sure that, things didn't revert to back what happened in 2012 when, one faction of the party basically, for perception purposes and or reality, drove out a lot of other people. And so I think that maybe there was maybe a little bit of an overreaction of trying to correct the problem.
Okay.
But I don't think that they deliberately tried to
stack the deck.
Stack the deck. And, of course, to their credit, after they did hear from the grassroots, they pared that list to 50, which in my view was still too large. And then after some more discontent, they pared that list to what I think was a reasonable slate out of Polk County. It was 27 out of the 263 delegates, so basically that's about, 11%. And it's what has happened in the past in Polk County. We basically only included people like Republican elected officials, Republican elected officials, party officials, like the county supervisors and the state reps and state senators and party people, kind of what traditionally has been. Then the rest were elected out of the precincts. Now, the other counties around the state, I think, and everything I'm picking up was not orchestrated by the Branstad campaign, but was basically something that they did on their own, again, because of concerns of some things that happened 2 years ago.
They wanted to wrest control away from the Liberty wing that had taken control back in 12. Tamara, your thoughts on my question?
Well, I think he's probably right in an overcorrection. It was overreaching. Everyone who attends their caucus and takes time deserves the right to be nominated and earned that delegation. And that's the key, is that you have to be elected as a delegate. You can't be slid in on the Rules Committee. And from what I understand, these names were going to be put through on the Rules Committee, and that in itself is a concern. So I'm thrilled that it was taken care of, that it's been remedied. I hope we can move forward. I think we have all kinds of potential. Like we were talking at the end of the last segment, this state is ripe to move forward. We're doing well economically. We have such possibilities. If we can get the factions of the Republican Party to come together, there would be no stopping us. If we could allow the evangelicals, the Tea Partiers, the Paul folks, the economically fiscal-minded folks, if we would come together, that would be a pretty hard team to stop. And so I'm hopeful that we'll just quit worrying about who might have done something with the wrong motivation, who might be with us or not with us on every issue, but who's with us on the majority of issues that are important to us.
Well,
Can we
and
move
that's
forward?
where the Democrats get us a lot of times, Tamara. They have disparate factions that have very little common ground in some areas, but they seem to coalesce as a functioning group, and they stay focused, and they've got their eye on the long term. And we seem to keep these petty battles going. And if, as you say, the old Reagan and formula 80-20. If you're with me 80% of the time, that's fine. I mean, a lot of us. I call it, I oftentimes use Steve Dace, Mac's best buddy, as the example. 99.9% isn't good enough. It's, you got to be 100% there all the time.
There are days I'm not sure I agree with myself, Tom. And let me be clear, that 80-20 or whatever it is, there are certain things that are non-com.
There are some areas of
life,
non-negotiables, right?
Marriage. Right. As John Locke said, we have to be parallel with nature's law. You just can't undo what has been done by nature, by our Creator.
And I agree with that. Steve, your thoughts on what I just said?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I mean, we got to quit this in fighting, but I think again it goes to leadership. A leader of the party has to make people feel welcome. It doesn't mean we have to agree on every issue. And I agree with Tamara. There are certain non-negotiables. But by the same token, it can't be, if you're not with me because you're not part of this faction, then I'm not going to work with you. And that's the perception, right or wrong, that is the state party now. And so we got to get away from that people feel included, because this is not a red state. This is a purple state at best. And you got to have those people working together to get our candidates elected in the fall.
I think we'll pull in a lot of independents as well. I think they're just as unhappy. I think Democrats are unhappy. Mm-hmm. And if we could come out, and it's not just a winning message, it's the truth. I tell you, our founding fathers had a larger challenge, I would guess, with differing backgrounds, language barriers, all those things we hear about, all the special groups that we're trying to now, voting blocks, we give special designations to people. Mm-hmm. We're not hyphen Americans, we're Americans. And if we could just start speaking the truth, give people honest hope, they would see the same thing that they saw during the beginning of this country when they put together that Constitution, which, by the way, they had to compromise. You had the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists. Yep, they had to compromise. If we could come together with that, give people hope, give them responsibility, give them their own. What I think we're seeing a lot today is fear. People feel like they have no ability to control it. It's out of their hands. They don't feel like they have input, and so they just don't even want to deal with it. They're shutting down. If we could have put it back in their hands, give them the ability to have change, to affect the way they live, I think we'd see a rising up.
J. Michael McCoy here, Max World Live here on Webcast One Live. Steve Scheffler, the chairperson for the Iowa Republican Party, on the phone. Tamara Scott, the chairwoman of the Iowa Republican Party, and Tom Coates in the House today. I'm either blessed or cursed, one way or the other, but I've got friends in all circles. And I have several of my Democratic friends saying that they see some middle ground Republicans moving to the Democratic Party because the Republican Party seems to be so stuck on the marriage issue that if you can't compromise on the marriage issue and say, let's put this one aside and let's work forward on things that maybe aren't such social issues, that these Republicans are going to move over to the Democratic Party.
And that's really unfortunate, but there are other things we can fix before we have to cave on. Here's the deal. We can't condone what God's condemned. It's just as simple as that. God bless this nation. That's why we've seen the longest document in working order as a constitution. We're one of the youngest nations with the oldest constitution. But there are other things we can do. Look at the case that went to the Supreme Court last summer on inheritance. If we would go back to that's bad law. The fact that the government can take or tax your inheritance or tell you how you can and can't give your inheritance is bad law. So why don't we go back and kill the inheritance tax? Do away with it. It says in the Bible that the prince should not take the inheritance of his people. If we would have a better law on the inheritance tax, remove it, that woman would have had no standing to be in front of the Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. There are other things that we can do. I will not give on marriage because I don't have that choice. It's not up to me. But there are other things we can do and come together. And I think most people would like the fact that they would get the whole inheritance from their family member or their friend, whoever it would be, rather than having Uncle Sam take 30 to 40 to 50% of it.
Steve, your final thoughts?
Well, one thing that was not covered, and I want to make sure that your listeners hear this loud and clear. I've seen some things posted, including somebody that has a lot of visibility with a lot of people, and I'm not going to mention the name. But one of the big arguments that we have to elect a state chairman on March 31st or 29th is because it's absolutely mandatory that this state chairman attend the RNC meeting in May. And the thing that was posted was that if that person didn't go, then we were in serious jeopardy of losing our First in the Nation caucuses. I want to let you know, Mac and Tom, that that's absolutely not true. We've dealt with the rules this time around that engraves Iowa's status in stone for one more time. We're not going to have a final vote on the confirmation for the host city for the Republican National Convention to our August meeting. And certainly we'll talk about some important issues, but nothing of consequence where it would be detrimental to the state chairman not being at the meeting. It's not unusual for state chairman not to be at the RNC meetings because state chairmen, by and large, don't stay around a long time. So that thing that is being spun by certain people is just not true. So I want to make sure that your listeners understand that fact.
All right. Anything else you want to add before we let Steve go?
No, thanks, Steve.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Tamara.
Yeah,
Talk to
Steve,
you later.
appreciate you being here. Thank you very
thanks
much.
so much.
Steve Scheffler, the chairperson of the Iowa Republican Party, on the phone with us. Thank you, Steve. And Tamara Scott, the Iowa chairwoman of the Republican Party. As the Republican Party is, and Tamara, I'm going to give you a choice of 3 words here. The Republican Party in Iowa is in turmoil, transition, or truancy. Turmoil, what did I say? Transition or truancy.
I like
The
transition.
3 T's.
I like transition, and I think, like I said, I think we have all kinds of possibilities, but we've got to quit waiting for the other side to really blow up. We've got to have what is the winning argument on our side, and we don't have to wait for Obama to do something or the administration to do something. If we would just
they've
come
done
out,
enough. If we don't have enough ammunition by now, we're not going to get it done.
we just need to come out with our principles and stand on them.
We've got a unique opportunity coming up. Not only do we have an unexpectedly open House seat, but we've got an open Senate seat. Tamara, how big an opportunity is this for the Iowa Republican Party?
Well, we haven't had this opportunity in several decades. So this is huge. It's also why we have so many people probably vying for it. Some people think that's a negative. We'd surely love to have one candidate everybody to get behind, but the positive is we have a great bench and a lot of options.
We'll talk about that bench when we come back live here on Max World on 99.3 KTIA Iowa, powered by webcast1live.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershide.
I'm administrative manager
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're gonna do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's gonna be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're gonna do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you gonna say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're gonna be listening. They're gonna wanna know what your challenges are. Then they're gonna come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though, I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm gonna take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
22 minutes before the top of the hour, Salem Radio Network news at the top. And then, of course, we have Pastor Michael Mudloff in True Blue. Today in Mac's World, Tom Coates standing by along with Tamara Scott, the chairwoman of the Iowa Republican Party. And you guys both just missed Bradshaw. He was here, and he asked if you were going to be around, and he wanted to see you, and he misses you.
If I'd only known, Mac, I'd altered my schedule.
Well, I'll tell you the next time he's going to come in. It'd be a couple weeks from now. We're going to get on the subject of the senatorial races for just a second, but I want to ask both of you a question and see where you stand on this. There is a rumbling in the social media world and in those Huffington Post people in which they are trying to get the word bossy.
Yeah, I saw that.
A hate word.
Bossy?
B-O-S-S-Y. And the reason is it is usually used against females to shut them down being aggressive, and therefore that's why we have such a male-dominated world.
It's how we describe women. We use it to describe women, and they feel like that's slowing women down.
Yeah.
Is she the vice president of Facebook, and she's joining up with the lady who's the Girl Scouts chair, and
that's right.
Condoleezza Rice, and all these women who have risen to the top somehow with this nasty word in our vocabulary.
Yeah. Now, have you ever been called bossy?
I'm sure I probably have.
Yeah.
Maybe even worse.
Not to her face, but yeah. No. And I saw a thing in the paper just the other day. The majority of college graduates now are women, no longer men.
Right.
And the majority of households, the women in the last few years are finally more educated than the men. Now, I don't know that that's necessarily a good thing, but that's just a fact of
today's life. It's always been
life.
the case in your family.
Well, that's true.
And then we have the headlines that women are having to marry down.
Yes.
Well, that's what happens when you give scholarships and when you allow programs, when you stop funding for white males into study programs, research grants, and that is happening. White males are discriminated against right now.
Yep, good point. And by the way, Tamara, I've got one other. Let's not lose track of this senatorial race. Now, it's interesting in both the Senate and the open house seat, which Latham's stepping out of, that there's only one Democrat stepping forward, unchallenged. In one case, it's Bruce Braley. In the other case, it's Stacey Apple. And yet, on both sides, for the Republicans, we've got a long litany of potential suitors that, as you already said, seem very capable. We're really having quite a battle, though, for who's going to challenge these two. Your thoughts on why that is, and then I'd like kind of get your ideas to describe some of the main front runners in both those races.
Well, I think on the Democratic ticket, and I'm not a Democrat and I've never been to their meetings, but it seems to me that they seem to get the top-down rule, and they take whatever leftovers they're served up, and they fall in line in marching orders. The Republican Party seems to be a lot more free-thinking, a lot more independently minded, and so we have people who want to vet, put people up against each other, and decide who is the best. The cream will rise to the top. And so I think that says a lot. I think that's how most of us would run a business. We wouldn't just take the next person in the slot. We'd want to know who's out there, who might have the best gifts for the need. Someone who may be running today may have a better skill set for the problems we're dealing with than 10 years ago or 10 years from now. Doesn't mean that they're a bad candidate or weren't ready. It's just that this is the time for them. Reagan had run before, but the year that we had him in office as president was perfect.
Yeah.
Your observations of maybe the top 3 or 4 candidates for the Senate seat.
Well, as National Committee woman,
right?
Well,
yeah.
but I want to cut through some of the chaff to get to the wheat here.
But she's bossy. She can't tell you. She's chief boss over there.
But here's the beauty of it. You know, maybe you're talking Scott Shaven may not rise to the top.
Right.
But even what he was saying in one of the debates at Drake, that the small business owner is likely doing something illegal. Not because he wants to, but because there's so many regulations, so much bureaucratic red tape that it's so difficult to start a business right now. So great point. And this is the beauty of having a primary. You get all of these thinking sets, and you get issues that come out that may not have been in before, and now somebody else will take that and run with it. So it's the grassroots. It's hearing and this is the beauty of the process as far as I'm concerned. And I hope after the primary, we'll all get behind whoever that candidate is. So we have Joni Ernst, the soldier, mother, and the legislator, and she looks congressional. She from what I'm hearing from the talking points, seems to be on the issue as well. We have Matt Whitaker. Matt was a former U.S. attorney. He's obviously well loved on the Iowa football team. He's surrounded himself with good people. He seems to have good issues. Common Core is something I'm very concerned about. He took time out to come learn. We brought in a Harvard-trained attorney and 3 experts, and he took time to sit and listen. No speech. He was not recognized. No speech. He wanted to learn. That, to me, says a great deal about someone.
He showed a lot of passion on that issue when he was on the show a few weeks ago, too.
Yeah. And so then you have him. Help me. Who am I? Sam Clovis, another constitutional scholar. The man's done radio for a number of years, taught at a college, and was in the military, a fighter pilot. So again, a resume that would be wonderful to have Sam. I would love to have Sam on the Senate floor, standing with a Mike Lee and a Ted Cruz.
It would be fun. Mark Jacobs is the other main candidate.
He's kind of come in late. He's making up for it with great literature and lots of things in people's mailboxes. I have not gotten to hear him in a debate yet.
He was sitting in your seat last week.
Okay, so we need to hear his talking
points. He's coming
points.
on the 18th. I think he's scheduled for that debate at the Embassy Suites.
I was just going to say
a week from today.
Yeah, a week from today at the Embassy Suites, 5:30. There's a debate.
I am scheduled to be in Mason City in another event.
Okay, that's unfortunate.
That is hard, being National Committee woman.
Let me ask you on the House race, and before we get into the personalities, Stacey Apple stepped up and was going to run against Tom Latham, a sacrificial lamb, and yet when he stepped out, there was some talk that they would try to put a stronger candidate. You and I were represented for a brief period of time by Stacey Apple in Warren County, and we know what a insufficient vessel she is. Yet they didn't do that. Are they not
The words and opinions of Tom Coates is not necessarily those of Webcast One, Tamara Scott, J. Michael McCoy, Ryan Northfield, or anyone else.
But they certainly are enjoyed by such.
They are.
Now, I have heard some scuttlebutt, Tamara, and I'm going to ask you this question, that the Democrats are more concerned over defending the 2 districts over to the east, the one held by Loebsack, the nutty professor, and Bruce Braley's old seat. Are they more concerned with that and willing to concede this election, or are they actively going to try to take it, even with a Stacey Apple?
I think they certainly would want to keep their eastern side. They're kind of known for having the eastern side of the state, the western side of the state being more red. So I could see they would certainly want to not lose ground. Whether they will concede or not, I can't speak for the Democratic Party. I know at the state level, we're told that Planned Parenthood is planning on coming into the state races. So if any of you care about life, if any of you care about your tax money funding a multi-million-dollar organization whose mission is to kill Americans before they're born, then you might want to get involved in these races. Find good people you can get behind and help them.
Should be all right. I saw even the Register put the poll out the other day. The vast majority of Iowans were opposed to the telemed. I think nationally it was 58% opposed to abortions in most circumstances. That was a recent poll. I mean, that's an issue we shouldn't have to run from, because if properly articulated, that's a winning issue for us, isn't it?
So look at the last presidential. You're right. The polls are showing that Americans are pro-life. Majority now is pro-life. And the younger kids are more adamant in pro-life than their older generations.
Exactly.
So this is an issue that the Republicans should have been able to rally behind last time, but you heard nothing. You heard crickets. And this is what I don't understand. The left, even when they're behind the 8 ball and it's not going their way, they don't back down, they double down. And I wish we could get that as Republicans, not just because it would help us in the polls, but because it's the right thing to do. And when you speak the truth, you do eventually win. Now, there are some who probably would have told us we needed to back down on life at some point because it's not a winning issue, just like some are saying this on marriage.
Yeah.
But in time, the science has proven what the Bible always said. And we've seen it now with our kids, whether it's ultrasound pictures being the first picture you see of your grandchild. It was mine.
Yep.
Truth wins out. Truth always wins out. Is it in time for us to win an election? That I don't know, but we have to speak it anyway.
Tamara Scott, the chairwoman of the Iowa Republican Party, is with us, along with Tom Coates. I'm J. Michael McCoy. We're coming back live here on 99.3 KTIA, Iowa.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hey, psst. Let me let you in on a little secret. You ready? Always try to do business with people, not places, especially if you seek honest Christian business people. And when it comes to my car, I really need to trust who's working on it. Now, my family is so blessed. A few years ago, we found a family-owned automobile repair shop that operates as a Christian business also. Open, honest, reliable, trustworthy. It's AMCO on Hickman Road in front of Kmart, and it's a family-owned Christian operating business. This family treats your car as if it was their car. Everything from oil changes to transmission repair and everything in between. So the next time you feel the need to be at peace with your choice of who you can trust with your car, give AMCO on Hickman a chance to serve you. And tell them Max sent you.
All across America, there are countless numbers of people struggling with addiction and other life-controlling issues. Probably someone you know and love. There is a way out. There is hope. Transformations Treatment Center in Delray Beach, Florida, has a unique approach to substance abuse treatment. Call now and ask about our Guaranteed Success program or log on to transformationstreatment.com. Transformations. Change your life. Change your relationships. Transform your world.
Before the top, Salem Radio Network News, and then Michael Mudloff with True Blue here on 99.3 KTI. Last few minutes here with Tamara Scott and Tom Coates. Okay, talk to me like I'm a 6-year-old. I don't understand Common Core.
You and most people, Mac. It was never intended. You haven't been given time to even get your hands around it. It was snuck through most states. They bypassed the legislature. You all probably remember the Race to the Top money.
Yeah.
That's when it was brought into most states. 5 states said no from the get-go. But several states in an economically depressed time, to be able to be eligible for funds, federal funds, you had to submit that you would join in the Common Core even before the standards were ever written. And so Iowa, like others, said, yes, sign us up. Well, we didn't get the funds. We didn't even get the waiver for the No Child Left Behind. What we got was stuck into this Common Core. We were told it'd be great standards. We need national standards. That sounds wonderful. But you both know that if we were to set a standard, and whoever's the lowest one usually can't come up, as well as bringing the top one down. That's what's going to happen. Instead of No Child Left Behind, it's No Child Will Move Forward. It's not rigorous standards. Dr. James Milgram, who is a professor emeritus, I think from Stanford, was on the committee and refused to sign off on the approval because the math is so lacking. We'll be behind 2 years of our counterparts around the world. When they talk about global, everything that you hear marketing in it is its shortcomings. It's like they took all of its weaknesses and made it their marketing tools.
Who's they?
Okay, it was the National Governors Association. It was the Chief of Council State Schools. These are groups you'd not really even heard of. So when you hear it was local, it was not created by local teachers. Their teachers here may have written a small part of something new for the Iowa Core. The Iowa Core is basically the Common Core. They are the same thing. In Brandstad's letter, when he re-upped our contract with the Smarter Balance Assessment Consortium, and forgive me because I'm throwing in a lot of terms if you don't know this, but in June 2011, he signed that paper saying that the Common Core, we've adopted the Common Core, now known as the Iowa Core. It is the same thing. And the standards are not rigorous. They are wanting. Now 70% of the NEA is coming out against it. Teachers are saying it is lacking. It's out of consequence. The academics of it is not taught in good sequential order. Kids are being asked questions on things that they can't comprehend.
So what's the agenda behind it? It sounds bad. What's the agenda? I think that's part of what Mac's getting to.
Okay.
Who is they and what's the agenda here?
Follow the money. And where Gates is funding this into the hundreds of millions. It's a workforce development program is what it is, trying to create a database on our students from kindergarten through. They have the P20W, I think. It's preschool for 20 years into the workforce. They will have over 400 points of data on every student, not just academic, but your belief systems, what you have in your home, your practices. That should be a concern to each of us, especially when we see the NSA, the IRS, behaving like they are. It is the old thinking of if we only controlled the classroom, if we only controlled the next generation, and then instead of having well-educated children who go out and become creators, innovators, what we have is a workforce development telling us what we need for the next marching class of employees.
Reminds me of, what was it, Hitler's brown-suited boys?
They don't like us to talk about that because that's that conspiracy theory. But in fact, our education bill we just had at the State House last year, which I did not like, had mentoring teachers in it. Hitler had master teachers.
Yeah. Now, Tom's older than I am, but he doesn't look older. But I don't think in my lifetime we're going to see this, but I think it's going to be in both of your lifetimes. And that is where our rights, our religious rights, are gone.
Happening.
In fact, not only are they gone, those rights now are converted to criminal, felony charges if I read from the Bible.
There is a bill right now at the State House. It's an anti-bullying bill.
Okay.
And if you're listening, I would invite you to call your legislators. The switchboard for the Senate is 281-3711, 281-3711. The House is 281-3221. Call them and tell them, please do not sign the anti-bullying bill. Again, what they're marketing is a bullying bill towards Christians. There will be no safeguards in there. If we're really truly concerned about bullying, period, we know Christians are often sought out, mistreated by teachers, by faculty members, not allowed into programs, expelled out of government college programs. We've seen this. We have the young student whose superintendent pulled him into the office and berated him, I don't know for how many hours, because he said he didn't think homosexuals should be allowed to adopt in his religion.
Yeah.
You're deeply held religious.
The last bullying bill was disguised as a bullying bill and had the gay agenda behind it.
This one does too.
Is this similar motivation, similar proponents?
Absolutely, Tom. In the subcommittee hearings, those same groups were all there. They were all allowed to speak. Never was anyone asked, are you against this bill? Would you like to have your voice heard? It was those same, the ACLU, the Safe Schools, which the man said, formerly known as the LBGTQ group, but it's too difficult to say that, so we just say safe schools.
That's a euphemism, isn't it?
It's very concerning, and your kids are going to be sent into a minefield.
Wow.
So every parent out there who says, but my child's ready, and we send them into the schools as missionaries, I love that thought. But you're sending them into a minefield as a missionary, and they're not ready.
What's the chance that bullying bill will pass?
Very good.
And this comes from Branstad.
I am told it's the governor's, out of the governor's office.
Is that because he wants to ensure his reelection? He's getting to the middle?
Again, I think if most Iowans, with his approval rating, if he would speak the truth of what's happening, employers he knows firsthand are being sued over something they have no control over, not knowing what your employees' lifestyles are. He could really rally this, and every small independent business owner who can't afford to defend themselves, even if they're found not guilty.
Right.
This is difficult, and this is what we're into. He could rally this state. Black, a Democrat, I was going to say right, left, wouldn't matter. Across the board, Asian, wouldn't matter. Mexican, Hispanic, wouldn't matter. Because everybody knows it's unfair to be targeted against something you're not even responsible to know.
Yeah. All right, Tamara Scott, as always, I sure appreciate you coming in. Wish you came in more often. You're always welcome. And your show, The Tamara Scott Show, is
10 a.m. Central Wednesdays.
And where do they find the podcast?
Webcast One Live. We're every Wednesday morning, and then Tamara Scott Live on YouTube.
Good. All right. Tommy, I'll see you now. A week from today, we have a very interesting debate
Yes.
That's over at the Embassy Suites among all the Republican nominees for Harkin's seat, right?
No, you got to get some tickets. It's not just walking in. I've got a couple of tickets reserved for us at will call. So
Can people buy tickets?
I don't know about buying. I think you have to probably get a hold of
somebody.
Yeah, know somebody. Maybe one of these camps. Then they'll have access.
I
to
don't know
tickets.
anybody though.
Well, we do, and
well,
that's
you
what
know
that-
somebody. I don't know anybody. You know everybody. All right, Right Places will be here tomorrow and Thursday, and then Friday, a delightful pastor. I think he's going to be one of your favorites. Comes out of the beautiful city of Jewell, Iowa. Until then, do one thing for me, would you? Till we see each other again. Think of that person that you dislike the most, the one that you carry the resentment towards, the one that keeps you awake at night and gives you heartburn during the day. Do me a favor. Forgive them.